Right, good evening, everyone. Hopefully everything's working. We shall soon find out. As per usual, with it being Tuesday and, I work late to work, so I only ever get time to come on pretty much as soon as I've got back. I came back with a blinding headache today, so I've dosed up on ibuprofen and I'm now fine. So we'll start off, I suppose, with whatever people want to talk about. There's been a little bit of an update, I guess, on the taunt issue, because there were some people panicking about that. That seems to have been put to rest, hopefully. I think we sometimes get these situations. I've noticed the same thing with some like class things with a lot of tuning going on. Some people see something and think, oh my god, it's a massive nerf, and it's not. It's just they don't read the tooltip correctly. Hi, John. Welcome. Hi, Groove. So, basically, well, for anyone who is new here, the way it works is quite simple. You decide what you want to talk about, and I try and ramble on for a little bit until someone else thinks of something else to talk about. World of Warcraft related, usually. Well, preferably. In fact, almost certainly, in the first hour at least. So much overreaction. Well, the problem is, of course, to be fair to them, yes, usually it's caused by someone misunderstanding a tooltip. But if it were the case that Blizzard developers never did anything massive in terms of changes, you would just think it's reactionary. But sometimes they do things like this. That being said, I don't think they would ever remove the threat bonus from taunt because that would be laughable. Afternoon, Wilton. You got a decent... Oh, yeah, of course you open your cache today. I don't get mine till tomorrow. No Azerite for you. Yeah, this is annoying, actually. I have to confess. This is another annoying thing. I'm so busy at the moment. I've got several videos I want to do. One of them's actually a really short one. I haven't got time to do it. But the Azerite thing, it doesn't annoy me as such personally because I'm just now casual. But I can understand other people's frustration because the fact of the matter is, we can't, from doing Mythic Plus dungeons, you can't get Azerite armor from the Mythic Plus dungeons. You can only get it from the cache. And if it doesn't have a high chance to drop, I think what people were thinking is, during the beta, when the situation was going to be, we're going to get one guaranteed piece of loot from the cache, but, not uncommonly get two, and very rarely get three. I think people assumed that there'd be a super high chance for an Azerite armor piece. That's not happened. So yeah, the first 2 weeks for me, I didn't get an Azerite armor piece. And if tomorrow I don't get one, that'll be for me 3 weeks running. There's something not right there. Something not at all right. Sylvanas is a war chief by mistake and manipulation. Who would have thought? Well, of course. It was obvious. The devil is in the detail with the Sylvanas becoming war chief thing. It was never a natural progression. Vol'jin was a natural progression. Sylvanas never was. Let's have a look anyway. One of the biggest selling points of Azerite armor for you was it was farmable, unlike legendaries from Legion. So it's an even bigger lottery. Well, yes. Well, to be fair, yes. At BlizzCon, they did say you could target it. However, as the alpha and the beta were unraveling, it was very clear that that wasn't technically going to be true of a certain level of player. Because in Mythic Plus, they said quite early on in the beta, admittedly, this would have been a surprise. In fact, in the alpha, I think, actually. This would have been a surprise to anyone who remembers what they said at BlizzCon, that you won't get it from the dungeons. Now, I am not opposed to that in principle, because it just makes it, if your BIS piece, like I can't actually remember, I need to resim them actually now with the changes, because I don't want to now say what my BIS piece is. But let's say the shoulders for me in Temple, really good. So I'd like to target that. But what if my class isn't all that great in Temple, or I just can't get keys in Temple? Because I'm just doing Mythic Plus with a little social group. We're not doing pugs or anything like that, or in a wider guild setting. There's like a few of us that are just doing them together. That's making it very difficult. Now, you could argue a group of socials just doing it together with a small group of people doesn't need their BIS ones, so that'd be fair enough. But for people who are doing it competitively, but still want their little posse, then they're making it impossible to target in Mythic Plus. And raids, it's laughable to say you can target it in raids because you kill the bosses regardless. You know, you don't go in and think, oh, you know, I'm just going to go in. I mean, okay, you can target it in the sense that your raid leader will ask, who needs loot off this boss? And those people can say that. But I don't think that's really targeting it. Is it? Is it me? I don't think that's really targeting it. They reduce threat on tanks and not put back in the game's way for the DPS to reduce the threat. Wally, I would wait to see how it works on this one, because I've got to say, because let's just go for the quote again. It says here from Blizzard, where is it? It says, nowadays in BFA, threat is once again something tanks need to keep in mind. I still say I'm not sure that's true. I have not heard any reputable tanks, correct me if I'm wrong, really complaining about it. And I have to say, in our crew that does the Mythic Plus, the tank that we have, who actually previously has played DPS, he's only really tanking for this 5-man that we've got together for the dungeons. He's naturally more of a DPS player. He's never had an issue holding aggro. You know, I can go into a pack and burst wings immediately and go straight into it with full holy power bar. And he keeps threat. You know, we've got a warlock in there doing his stuff. We've got a demon hunter. He doesn't have an issue with threat. Like, so, I mean, I did some maths on it when they first talked about the BFA threat changes. And it seemed to me that it wasn't a big deal at all. And it's just seemed, my experience has just been borne out with that. And I haven't heard decent tanks elsewhere complaining either. So, although obviously if they're going to reduce any aspect of threat generation, it may be an issue. I just think we'd wait and see, because it equally may not be. Because some tanks, you don't even need to taunt that often as well, some tanks. Sorry, I'm going to be missing loads at the beginning. I'll just try and... We might have to cycle around a few topics. Can we just admit that Mythic Plus is not rewarding at all anymore? See, I don't know. For me personally, of course, it really doesn't matter. I am now casual. And do you know what? I'm actually quite enjoying being casual, I have to say. I'm not, you know... I'm not looking misty-eyed at all the raiding going on, which is a surprise to me, because I thought I might, but I'm not. But then I've just done what I always do. I found other things to occupy me when I do have some downtime. But I can certainly see there is an issue with Mythic Plus and the Azerite gear. There is an issue there. I understand that there's a downside to letting it drop in the cache at the end of the Mythic Plus. But I also don't think it's acceptable to have the status quo. The situation we have now, where you can go for several weeks and basically not have any. Like, it doesn't matter for me personally. Okay, at the moment it's holding my item level back. My average item level is about 358, 359. But all of my Azerite gear pieces are 340. From the original Mythic dungeons, or... you know, the ones you get from World Quests. So they're dragging it down, the rest of my gear. Hang on a minute. What am I missing here? Let's just have a quick... You're going to miss it. I will upload this as ASAP as long as... Well, it should be fine this week, because Ian Hazakostas hasn't sniped my stream. It's a pain now in pub groups when a good friend of yours tanks. Threat is no stress, but random heroics and stuff do suck with threat. Yeah, I tried doing a heroic just for... I don't know why. I was streaming on Sunday, and I just thought, I'll just do a hero. I can't remember why. Oh, yeah, I remember why. Because I needed to do the quest in Uldir. So I did that. And I couldn't believe how much of an arse they were making of it. It was quite incredible. But even then, I don't think there was any threat issues. It was just a tank and a healer. Well, a tank especially, who just was clueless. You can tell... Hold on. Let's get through these. That's the problem. No one complained when they did the initial threat change, so now they're seeing how far they can take it. No, the initial threat change was nothing to get upset about at all. It was over bloated. It was excessive. It didn't need to be as much of a bonus as it was. There was nothing to. There really was nothing to complain about. The way threat works now is not a problem, and it's nothing like, because people kept saying, "Oh, it's back in vanilla or TBC where threat mattered." No, it's not. It's not at all. Threat. I have not come across any threat issues. You know, with the thing, all that happens is occasionally, if I target a different mob to the tank, and wings and burst it and all the rest of it, I'll get some threat on it. I'll just say to the tank, "Oh dear, I seem to have threat on this thing," and he'll taunt it off me, and I'll never hear from it again. It's not an issue now, and I think all they're trying to do is, to be fair to them, is to make threat a mechanic, because for years it has not been. And I can understand players who may not have played or may not have played tank for more than a few years. It might seem like a big change, but it's still a non-issue. We'll see how it goes with the taunt thing. But as I say, a lot of tanks don't actually even taunt that much anyway. I mean, obviously you're going to taunt at the start of a raid boss pull. But a lot of the time, it's just there to deal with problems rather than being a part of a rotation or anything. You can tell easier who isn't a good tank and who is now. That may be true. That may indeed be true. But I don't even think you need to be a cracking tank. I just think you need to have an idea of how it works. And yeah, you could argue it's going to put the emphasis on tanks to learn how to actually tank. Because I think a lot of tanks have got into the habit of just behaving like a DPS with delusions of grandeur. You know, as a tank, they get into queues more quickly, or it's more easy to find groups. But they otherwise just behave like a DPS who occasionally had to use some mitigation against or do a tank swap in a particular situation. So, you know, maybe it'll have that benefit. But I don't think accomplished tanks, even competent tanks, are having any issue. I've not heard of anyone having any issues anyway. I'll tell us the threat buff to taunt was from when we had Vengeance in the game, and off tanks needed a way to get threat from the main tank. Yes, that's exactly what Blizzard said indeed, and that's perfectly true. It is. You could argue it's just a legacy mechanic that they never got around to changing. So there we go. Something has just happened here. My text has just... Oh no, it's back again. What the hell happened there? I can see you here though, it's all right. I've gotten panicking stations from last week when the stream just suddenly went. So hopefully that's not there. You just think the Mythic Plus cash should give a piece of Azerite gear and a chance at one other piece. That would certainly be a way to do it. Yes, and that I think was what some people thought might be a similar system. I don't think it has to give you a piece every single week. I wouldn't oppose it. But it's certain. I really don't think you should go for multiple weeks without getting one. You know, because I mean, at this rate, it might be you only get one a month, so you're going to take up to Christmas before you've even got. And that, you know, what if you get a chest? What if by Christmas I'm doing, you know, Mythic Plus dungeons every week, and I've only got one piece of gear that's above 340 still, Azerite gear? How mad would that be? You'd like to hear my concise thoughts? Ooh, that's a challenge. My concise thoughts on Azerite armor. You completely despise it and think we need to do something with the whole artifact thing already. Well, the artifact system is now set in stone. It's there. I agree that it is not as good as the weapon artifact system, where you just unlocked traits. Because the advantage with just unlocking traits was, even if some traits were crap, it didn't matter. You just unlocked them and it was done. The current system with Azerite armor, I don't really see as an improvement. But the thing that I was saying this in the stream actually, the thing that gets me, the thing that makes it very difficult for me to criticize it too strongly is I do not know why Blizzard did it. I don't know. I understand them wanting to get rid of the weapons and change it to a neck, But I don't know why the neck just didn't follow the suit and have the traits on it that you unlock. I don't know why they wanted this neck and an armor thing. And it might be they had a good reason for it. I just don't remember them saying what it was. So that's my concise thoughts. I think they've made a right pig's breakfast of it. I don't think in concept it was as good as the artifact system from Legion. But I don't know why they've done it. So I can't really attack their logic because I don't know what it is. Your main concern is they make tanking harder. Fewer people will do it and queue times will increase. Maybe, but maybe not. I think tanking attracts a certain type of player. And I think those types of player will still be drawn to tanking. They it might be like pie in the sky thinking, but they may have the impetus to learn how to tank. Because at the end of the day, how do you learn? You learn by making mistakes. I don't mean learn as in go and find a guide. That would be nice. But I mean learn. You'll make a mistake. And what will happen is you'll learn from it. That's how you learn anything. You make mistakes. So the more mistakes they're making. Because in the past, they could have been getting things wrong. But it didn't. From their point of view, if there was no consequence, they don't learn anything. 1 week you've got a regular item, one an Azerite item so far. And both your alt and your main. Well, that's... You might have been the lucky one then. Or maybe not, you know. Depends whether the Azerite item was any good or not. What are my thoughts on Azerite trait stacking? Do you think it could be better if there was diminishing returns for stacking? No. If there were diminishing returns for stacking, it would be unfair on people who just happen to be getting... Because it's largely random what Azerite pieces you get. All right, it's not technically random in raids, but there's so few pieces in the raids anyway because there's only so many bosses. But in Mythic Plus dungeons, because you're only getting it from your cache, it's completely... Okay, it's not randomized traits, but it's random which piece, if any, you get. So if someone just happens to have all their best pieces having the same trait, and it's the only realistic one you can pick, it seems a bit unfair to penalise them. What do I think would give better customization options? Customization is very... I think that's a big problem actually in World of Warcraft. I don't think there's a simple fix for customization of a character. And I also don't think that the primary reason for Azerite gear is customization of the character. Because there is no such thing. Something in a given situation is going to sim higher than something else. So, customization implies a choice. I don't really see the choice. The best way to customize is through talents, I think, rather than Azerite traits, over which you've got much more control. And I think, well, for Ret Paladin, certainly, I would argue to a certain extent there is a little bit of choice there. I think that's a lot better, this expansion. I don't know what it's like for other classes. But it is... I just think the way WoW is now has moved so far away from character customization. I just think it's very difficult to do a little thing to improve that. I think the best way to customize, quite frankly, in WoW is cosmetically. Excuse me. Is cosmetically. And... So I've been shouting at my students all day trying to get them to do a bloody graph. Useless. Don't actually shout. But, yeah. Just cosmetic. That's the best way to customise in WoW. But they don't even go down that road enough. What's my view on WoW keeping the tab targeting combat system? I just think it's one of those things that's set in stone. I would like to think that if they brought out another Warcraft-based game, that it would have a more modern system. But I just see it as a core part of the game. I just think there's some parts of the game that they're not going to change while it's World of Warcraft. They may change if they did another, whether it was a World of Warcraft 2 or a different type of Warcraft game. I can see that, but I can't see them changing it in WoW. Would it even be possible? Could they even do it? I don't know. From a technical point of view, if they could even do it. Install Omen threat to me to add on. Yeah, you could go back to Omen, yeah. Where are we? Loot pieces have no soul like old days. We just play a slot machine. Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, it's because it's so throwaway. You have epic... See, there used to be an escalation in gear, of course. You know, from greys, whites, greens, blues, purples. But now we just get purple. And it's really about the item level now. It's all just throwaway stuff. Massively throwaway. This is why the ring enchants require, the good ones, require 8 epic crystals, the shards, from disenchanting epic gear. Because they're so worthless. The actual pieces are just so disposable. Azeroth has become a throwaway society, effectively. So yeah, I would agree that there's no attachment to pieces of gear, and it's because you don't keep them for very long either. You know, back in vanilla and TBC, sorry, hold on. I feel I ought to be wearing something else. There we go, rose tinted goggles time. So back in vanilla and TBC, not only did you have the look of the piece of armor because there was no transmog, not that I'm harking back to those days, transmog is awesome. But, although ironically, I used my transmog to turn myself back into vanilla and TBC pieces. But, you had it for so long. Some people, I got a shield from Naxxramas, from Gluth, Death's Bargain, I still have it. And I used that all the way up to Black Temple. I didn't like any other shields that I'd got in the interim. So I was still, you can see me using the bloody thing on my, going back to one of my oldest videos ever, my first kill of Kel'Thas in TBC, I had Death's Bargain on my back, which was a level 60 Nax shield. It's a nice shield. And also you could see in the gear, so this is me right at the end of tier 5, and I was wearing tier 4 gear, including a piece from Karazhan. Didn't matter. Well, especially as a healer. Gear wasn't that important for a healer. You know, if you had enough. Good evening, Petra. So, yeah. Honestly, you mainly care about what's fun. Hammer of Wrath and Inquisition Sim, blah, blah, blah. Well, 1.2% isn't that much for a lot of people anyway, or even most people. Don't worry about that. That's what I mean about the tinted lenses. Love the tinted lenses make staring at a screen 500 times more comfortable. Do you know what? At my work, right, in the physics department, they found some old Spectrums, ZX80 stuff. And so the physics lab technician's been trying to get them working. He's brought stuff in from home, found an old CRT television to use as a monitor. And he's getting it all working. They weren't really working first of all. He's a wonder, he is. But I was looking at this screen because it's years since I've seen a computer like that. Decades even. And I was looking at this thing and I'm thinking, I don't know how you can sit there typing at that thing, because it would give me a headache. You know, just this vague flicker, the bright white screen. I thought, oh, I used to have that computer. Dear God. But anyway, sorry. Back to WoW. At least as long as the Azerite, at least with the Azerite gear, as long as you get some decent traits, they don't necessarily need to be the best. But decent can be competitive with tier. If you couldn't get your 4-piece, you're out of luck. But the thing is, you would get your 4-piece. The thing with tier gear is, assuming you raided, like progress raided, and it might only be heroic pieces rather than the mythic. But you would get your force, even the worst of us, even the unlucky of us. And in Legion, I was very unlucky with Conqueror gear. You would still have it after about a month. So the lucky ones were the ones who got it in the first week. The unlucky ones who got it in about week 4. But after week 4, you still had it. Week 4 of Uldir, there will still be people without any of their BIS Azerite pieces. You know. Especially if all they're doing is Mythic Plus dungeons. But that's a different thing anyway, because obviously tier. I know the set bonus piece, but there's a set bonus piece is still in Mythic Plus dungeons anyway. Really, isn't there? You wish they would add more cosmetic options to the game? I would. In fact, the video I'm trying to make at the moment is basically talking about just that. But not a big rambling one this time. More glyphs for spells. The ratio. Yeah, more. Well, exactly. Do you know what? I mean, this is what does my head in about Blizzard. People, as soon as an alpha comes out, do you know what people are first of all asking? After, it's all to do with class. That's all people want to know about. It's like, oh, new zones. Yeah, don't care. What I want to know is, how's my class? And have we got any new spell animations? That's what people go mad for. You know, where is that bloody thing? I have almost no videos that are around about 100,000 views. But one of the very few I have is just me reviewing in 2 minutes flat a new spell animation for Holy Light, I think. No, Flash of Light. Holy Light. Which one? Can't even bloody remember. The one with the book. Paladin healing spell. I feel awful now. I can't actually remember which healer spell it is. It must be Holy Light, because I have Flash of Light as a ret and I certainly don't get a book out. Because people go mad for it. They're desperate for that. All someone has to do with Alpha Access is stand at a training dummy and cast all their spells, or if they see a new animation, do the new animation, and 50,000 views easy. So cosmetic thing. So if they brought out glyphs that turned your spells all the colours of the rainbow according to your choice, of course people would go mad for it. They could even hide it behind content. It's like, right, you've got to complete these achievements to get it. Wouldn't even have to be glyphs. It could be you complete these achievements and you get, you know, your fireball can be bright green. Whatever they want. How easy would that be to do? And people would do it. Look at the effort people went to get green fire in MOP for the Warlocks. How much did that actually take? And that was and this could just be hidden behind achievements that already exist in game. It wouldn't even take any extra, they wouldn't have to create any new content for it. They just have to hide it behind achievements that already exist, but that people don't generally do. Anyway, what do I think of the kill 3 bosses hidden quest in Uldir to basically buff your regeneration array? Oh, what? I didn't even know that. That's a thing I didn't even know about. Do you? Is that a thing? Kill 3 bosses to buff your regeneration array? I didn't know that. You had 3 pieces of 370 of your Abyss traits with 2 of a Raiders and Windwalker Monk. Then Blizz nerfed the trait. Well, yeah, this is the thing, you see. If, especially early on in an expansion and a raid tier, if you have the Ultra Abyss trait, you know it's getting nerfed. You just know it's getting nerfed. Just like if you have one that's bargain basement, there's a pretty good chance it's going to get buffed. I'm not going to say that they're going to make them all equal, but that's what they're trying to do. So obviously the big outliers on either end of that spectrum are going to be brought more towards the middle. Speaking of animations, it would be nice to get some different animations. You see all the NPC. Well, be careful what you wish for. I didn't like the new Templar's Verdict animation. You see all these NPCs in these unique animations. Would be nice for the players to get them to. Oh yeah, well, things that they've already done, absolutely. They could easily put those in as well. Of course, about the new spells, we're going forward in the game, but that doesn't happen in BFA. We're going backwards. Warlock Greenfire is still prestigious, is it? You have to kill 3 bosses per week to buff it per week. Does that buff last for the next week then, or is it just for the remainder of the current week? Check out Preacher's recent gear video. He explains it. Someone's just explained it to me. That's right, they don't even have to create new content. They could just do the old stuff well, like they used to. I really think Ian and the rest of the dev team are king normies at this point. It is maddening to me that they do not understand how much of a draw. I don't need these anymore. I'll keep them there just in case they're required later. How much of a draw it is to just put some cosmetic rewards in. Like the thing I'm going to talk about, right? Because it's not a big spoiler anyway. You know the Dreadwake mounts, which you can get for like just paying for half a year's worth of subs. Now I think that's quite poorly implemented, which I will talk about in the video that I will sort of hopefully do tonight. But where I can't understand it is why don't they do things like subscribe for 3 months in a row and you get a pet, and subscribe for 6 months in a row, however you do it, whether it's with WoW tokens or monthly subscriptions or paying for a year at a time, whatever. Every 3 months you get a pet. 3 months in a row, not for every, but if you've subscribed for 3 months in a row, you get a pet, which is a unique pet, one that they've made specifically for that achievement. You only have to do that 4 times a year. You're not telling me they can't come up with 4 really unique new pets a year just for that specific purpose. And every 6 months, a mount, a special looking mount as well, a good one, not a recolor of something that's in game, right? And it's like, all you have to do is keep subscribing and that's what you're going to get. It's not going to work for everyone, but that I would be prepared to bet my left bollock that it would get enough extra subs to pay for the artwork that had to be done to implement it. Let's have a look. Go on. Sorry. You kill one boss and get the regeneration array buff, and it can be stacked 3 times after the 3rd kill buff. The buff, yeah, I know what the array does. Yes, great. It grows by 1 stack every week as long as you get the kills. Ah. There's a little description on Raid Azerite gear that says, yes, yeah, that's right. I know which piece, yeah, you can tell which pieces give you the regeneration array. I tested it out in the beach as well. It was actually quite nice. But obviously there, you didn't have to kill 3 bosses because you were just raid testing. If you kill 3 bosses, you get a buff to your permanent up to 10. Lasts forever. First week gave you 75. Week after 150. Oh, I see. Okay. Great. That's very interesting then. The boat they gave out just makes you want to keep people who have it because you hate it. I think it's a really nice mount. I'll be doing it because the thing about that mount as well is you're not paying any more for it. You know, if you're going to stay subscribed anyway, it's not costing you anything. You can run LFR for the 3 kills. Well, I have run LFR, so that's fine. The problem is I don't have any Azerite gear. So I have no re-origination array. And also the thing is as well, the re-origination array only works in Uldir anyway. Who gives a crap when it's LFR, I suppose. But, yeah, it's only going to be really of any importance for the Mythic Raiders. But is what you're saying then, if you, let's say you're a Mythic Raider but you go progressing quite slowly, you can get those kills from LFR and it'll still work in the Mythic, I take it is what you mean. I see, yeah. That'll be alright. I'm okay with that. Right, let's go back. See if I've missed anything. No, I think I'm caught up. Oh, dear. I noticed the new wing has opened up as well, so I'm going to have to try that out at some point. I'm not going to do it tomorrow. I'm going to do Lord of the Rings Online tomorrow. I'll save it for Sunday. Before your raid night, you're told to run LFR to get the buff. Well, you could do it together though, couldn't you? I remember in MOP, I can't remember why, but for some reason, early MOP, there was a benefit in running LFR at some point. It might have been for some good trinkets or tier, just to get the tier bonus or something. But we just did it as a guild. We just went in. Like 24 of us. There was like one pug who thought they died and gone to heaven because there was a Mythic Raid guild boosting them through LFR, basically. Even if you don't have the Azerite armor, the quest is kept track of in the background. Oh yeah, I'm quite sure. I'm just saying, in my particular case, 1, I'm only really doing LFR, and 2, I don't have the thing anyway, and I may never get it. It doesn't really matter for me. But I tell you what it is then. That's actually quite a nice idea as a stealth buff, because they've tried various things in raids, haven't they? So way back when they used to try, it started off in Wrath, I think, didn't it? Where each week there was some bonus. You could choose to turn it off if you wanted, but who the hell would do that? I suppose this is a similar thing, isn't it? It's just subtly making you more powerful each week to help you get over the line if you're struggling a little bit on a boss. There's no accountability of Blizzard when people give them a half-year's sub. Well, no, and I know what you mean. It's like advance ordering something. But at the same time, it's business. It's an obvious thing to do. They should do it. And it's, you know, if people want to do that, for them, that's fine. That's up to them. A lot of those people, like, I'll be getting them out. But I would be subbing for the next 6 months anyway. But I would absolutely do more of this if I were Blizzard. I would do more of it. And I would make it better as well. As I say, I wouldn't say, oh, pay for it in advance. I would just say, if you are subscribed for the next however many months in a row, unbroken, then you get this mount. Isn't it nice? What do I think the BlizzCon WoW item with? Oh! I haven't got my virtual ticket yet. You just reminded me. Shit, need to sort that out. BlizzCon's not far away now. That's gonna make a mess of my Mythic Plus Dungeoneering. I'm not missing that. I'm not missing them. You heard a YouTuber say that the mount is like the dancing ladies that send young lads off to World War One to get killed in war. Yeah, but nobody dies. You just get to play World of Warcraft for a bit longer. I have no issue with it at all. At the end of the day, it's a cosmetic promotion. If anyone was going to sub for that length of time anyway, it's not costing them any extra. If they weren't going to sub for that long anyway, it is costing them extra, but they know what they're getting. I would also say that there was a situation back in Cataclysm, at the end of Cataclysm, where they offered a year's annual pass. So you had to pay for a year up front. You got Diablo 3 with it. And then there was no new content for that year. That was a bit cheekier. This one, at least we know there is. I don't think, whether or not BFA, at the end of it, when all is done and dusted, is regarded as being a suitable follow-on from Legion, is for now up in the air. But there will not be, it won't be like WoD, where there was no new content over time. You know, I think they've already shown there is going to be new content with the major content patches. Whether or not, as I say, it lives up to Legion is another matter, but it will be there. So I don't see why it's I don't see it as being dishonest, because people know what they're going to be getting in a way that was not the case for that Cataclysm thing. Because with the annual pass, when that was brought out for Cataclysm, there was no suggestion that would cover the entire period still of Cataclysm with no new content. People may have imagined it may have also covered the start of the following expansion, which would have been MOP, which it didn't. RuneScape had a similar loyalty system. Well, loyalty system is something that I've kept talking about. The idea that your subscription, you should get some points which could be put towards services on the online store. I mean, that's an obvious thing to do. Such an obvious thing to do. You think the actual mount is good? I think it's amazing, the mount. Ordinarily, I wouldn't bother. I'm not really into mounts, I wouldn't normally bother. I would just think, well, because I pay my subscription 3 monthly. So actually, this would mean me having to spend money on one of my WoW accounts on a month when I normally wouldn't. So, but it's not going to cost me in the long run, but it's going to cost me now. But I think I'm going to get it anyway. I don't know how long the promotion lasts for. But, just hate Ian and his team more than they deserve for pushing out an expansion as unready as this is. He blamed localization issues for all the typos in the AMA. Did he really? The thing is, it may not... I don't think it's his decision when it comes out, you know. I think sometimes... I'm not saying that developers aren't culpable at all, because I think they wasted a lot of development time on things they shouldn't have done. I think there were certain things they should have abandoned, not core, features, obviously, to focus on getting it ready. But I don't think that he would have been... I really don't think he would have been okay with the release date. And I don't think it was his decision. I think it was a deadline set for him, not by him. Well, you say you don't have to give them another cent, use gold on WoW tokens. I mean, that is giving them... In fact, that's giving them double dollars. Because someone is buying the WoW token. I wish more people would buy it for gold, though, because at the moment, the WoW token is worthless. It's pathetic. The sooner it starts going back up in value, the sooner I will get one. I'm running out of gold. The problem with the matter is that Blizzard decided to release it in a bad moment. It was data mined 3 months ago. They left the door open for all kinds of speculation. I don't think they released it at a bad moment. I think that mount was created specifically to release when subs were going to drop. Now, what I don't know is, has it been done reactively? Have they just waited for the subs to drop and then brought it out? Or did they just expect them to drop because it's like the first month's gone and that's why they've done it? So, but what I would say is I don't see it as bad timing. I see it as subs dropped, roll out the Dreadwake. And it wouldn't surprise me if, well, it would surprise me because they just don't seem to get hold of it. But I would do the same thing twice a year. You know, at a dip of subs, it's like, oh, I wouldn't even necessarily say 6 months because I think you'd get more from just doing 3 months. I would just say, get a 3-month sub, because it's targeted at the people who will sub for literally a month and then not sub until the next patch. I would just say, pay for a 3-month sub and you get this mount. Just do that. When the subs drop, just do that. He may be the lead developer, but you remember he has a boss too. Indeed, yeah. And the bosses, in any company like this, the bosses ultimately are the ones who are not even necessarily working for the company. They own the shares. So, you know, it's the ones who just want to make money out of the thing. You don't think Ian is upset with how the game is doing. He's upset with how the community is taking it. Well, then that's his fault for not communicating properly at the end of the day. And you may be right. That may indeed be what it is. At the same time, I would still think that he is upset with how the game's doing, because no one surely likes it. He knows it's not up to standard. I don't want to overblow it. It's not, it's not a shit show, but it's not up to standard either. It didn't help that it was released on the same day Method beat Uldir Mythic. I don't know. With the Darkshore Warfronts taken as a little by surprise, Barons was everyone's expectation. How tantalised am I by the data mining possibly hinting at a Silvermoon remake for a future one? I would quite like them to make the whole Blood Elf zone so we can at least bloody fly in them. That would be lovely. Same with the Draenei one as well, I guess. But especially the Silvermoon one. I don't like that little pocket plane there where I can't fly. Even though I've got no reason to go there, I hate Silvermoon City. even as a Horde player. It's pretty and all, but it's just a pain in the arse to get around. Be a lot easier if I could fly. But I am looking forward to that Warfront because it looks a bit different. My fear was the Warfronts would just be all basically the same with different scenery. But I don't think that's the case. Make a good game and you don't need a loyalty system? No, I don't know. I think with something like a subscription-based game that lasts... See, some games, they know that they're only going to last a month or two. You know, the single-player games, things like that. So all the revenue is generated by the person buying the box in the store, basically, or the digital equivalent nowadays. Whereas I think for something like this, they need people to stay in it. And you can't create the content at the same rate people consume it, especially when it's consumed at the casual level. So there has to be incentives. But it's easy to make those incentives. Cosmetic incentives are the best incentives. It does my head in that they don't see that. I got you into Warhammer Age of Sigmar and 40k. Well, I actually went along to the local wargaming place last night because on Sunday I finally finished my 2,000 point army. I needn't have bothered because I don't think it's going to be that easy to get. I don't think I'm going to be able to get 2,000 point games anytime soon. I may be able to get 1,000 point games, so I might as well have just stopped at not stopped at 1,000, but gone along at 1,000. I could have had some games by now. And I also don't know if there's anyone who knows how to play it well, because I watched a couple of people play a 1,000 point game last night, but I was like helping them with the rules because they're only just starting it as well themselves. So there might be a lot of people that are only just starting it. You can't help but see how good Legion was in its near universal popularity at its end, and the similar. Yeah. See, the thing is, again, about Legion, trying to bear in mind, is Legion had more resources than any expansion ever has or ever likely to have. Because it basically nicked development time from WoD. Because WoD, at a certain point, was abandoned as a bad job. So Legion got all the benefit from an extra big team for a longer amount of time. BFA cannot have had as much development time as Legion had. So it's very difficult, well, in fact, downright impossible for BFA, I suppose, from that point of view, to be as good. It just needs to be good enough. And whether it is or not, it may still be. It's just that at the moment, it's got some good things going for it. But, you know, I think it's because the bad things about it are just too annoying for people. You know, if classes aren't working right, the Azerite traits was a big feature of it. If they're not quite working right, then that affects it. Islands are a bit boring. So because they didn't get those firing on all cylinders at the start, that's obviously something to, because that was a key feature of it. You know, the Warfronts, the fact that Alliance got to do sod all. You know, Horde got their Warfront effectively quite early. Alliance were pissing about, chasing after a world boss that doesn't drop any loot, which we've now got as Horde. Do you think the Warfront buildings will be used for garrisons for different races? No. They've never really wanted to do anything like that. I don't know what the garrisons was about, but whatever it was about is something that I don't think they're going to explore ever again. I imagine if any developer ever suggested anything that would even use that technology, you know, all the developers in the room will throw a turnip at them and shout, "We don't want any more garrisons." It's opportunistic versus deceptive advertising. Yeah, well, the Cataclysm, well, whether it was a full-on deception, it was certainly people getting the annual pass in Cataclysm may have had the view that it would cover a period of new content, which it didn't. This one we know it is. But yeah, I just think, you know, it's an obvious thing to do. I think you should do more of it. Because I understand it's a business at the end of the day. It's a business. And as long as... I don't mind what any business does, obviously as long as it's legal, and as long as they're not misleading their customers. As long as their customers know that they're being told in all reasonable ways what they're getting out of it, I think that's fine. This is basically, at the end of the day, I look at it as an awesome mount that is costing regular players of the game nothing. It just means I'm paying a bit more up front than I normally do. Because ironically, my 3-month subscription got paid out, the month just gone. So it's like, I wouldn't be due to pay it again till December. Now I'll be paying it on one of my accounts. It's going to be quite messy, end of September. Then the other 2 accounts will go out in December. It's going to make a bit of a mess of everything. That's a bit annoying. But other than that, it's fine. I'm not paying any extra for it. Maybe it's the sandwich philosophy as Blizzard's expansions. We are in the lettuce phase with BFA. You calling BFA salad? That's the salad, is it? The worst thing for you in BFA really is personal loot and getting Azerite gear. Well, yes, the forced personal loot is of course an issue for a number of reasons. But they didn't listen. They went ahead with it. It was disappointing, but there we are. Hi, Robert. Was very disappointing. You got the annual pass. I got the annual pass as well. To be honest, I don't regret it because it came at a time when I'd just come back to World of Warcraft and I knew I was going to carry on playing it for the next few years. I'd come back to it because I'd admitted defeat. I'd quit the game and then came back, with my tail between my legs. Please, sir, can I have some more? So I knew that even with the content drought, I was still going to be playing it. And I did. So I didn't, even though I didn't really, I have since played Diablo 3. I tried it out when we got the annual pass. I didn't really like it at first. It grew on me later on. So I didn't. But at the same time, I could well imagine that the issue for me was not whether or not it's worth it. That's irrelevant. Whether or not something's worth it is down to the estimation of whoever's paying for it. But it's important that when you're paying for something, you know what you're getting. If they'd have said, pay for a year's subscription, get Diablo 3 free, by the way, we may not have the new expansion out by then, and we're certainly not going to bring anything else out for Cataclysm, just bear that in mind, that would have been fine. Of course, you wouldn't expect them to ever say anything like that. You haven't had too many issues with personal loot, but for love of God, can weapons and offhands be a thing? If you have a 372-hander and get a 371-hander, you can't trade the one-hander. Can't you? Really? I didn't know that either. That's unpleasant. That's very unpleasant. Because I think it's tough enough for tanks in particular, like the sword tanks, the sword and shield tanks, I should say, sorry, to get loot. You'd think they could at least sneak a bit of loot off a DK now and then. Wow. The nostalgia train that becomes harder to fight the longer you stay off the game. Well, yeah. I mean, the problem was, for me, the reason I quit WoW in the first place at the start of Wrath is because I just thought basically they'd killed off raiding. It just seemed to me that raiding had been killed off as, as an end game activity. And then it just turned out that they just didn't have a raid ready to go at the start of Wrath. So they just cobbled something together because Uldir ended up being some people's favourite raid ever. And it was certainly, whether it would have been mine or not, I don't know. I can never know. But it was certainly a very good one. I could appreciate that. So, yeah. So, arguably, had I known that, I wouldn't have quit in the first place. So, it's not that I thought the game got better. It was just that it didn't end up being as I thought it was going to be. There are no great MMOs that have lasted like WoW. in terms of greatness in its literal term now, some people will regard EverQuest and RuneScape, but I've never really seen the appeal of those myself. Hi, Mark. From Australia. Gordon Bennett, what time must it be there? Which part of Australia? Because there could be any number of times. Beta access. Do you not feel like you are paying them to test their game for... Well, I don't pay for beta. So no. And I also understand that with beta I'm testing, and I understand that I'm donating my time to do that. I'm happy with that. The 5 a.m. Wow. I actually woke up at 5 a.m. this morning. Couldn't get back to this. I'm tired now. No, so in terms of beta, yeah. So my view on it, what I do resent is the fact that if I am filling in lots of detailed feedback, and it's good feedback that it's agreed with by other people who know what they're doing, and Blizzard just basically chuck it in the bin, then I feel a bit aggrieved. Because then I'm thinking, because when I'm testing the beta, the thing I'm primarily looking at is the class. I do it for the class stuff. Sure, I test out the content as well and throw thoughts into that. But mostly it's like, how's the class playing, stuff like that. And when it's like ignored, then you feel a bit more aggrieved. Because then you feel that the time you're donating to do it isn't even being usefully used. So that's disappointing sometimes. I only say sometimes, not always. But I understand that I am testing. No, active sub is not required for beta. Indeed. It's not at all, no. You just have to have a Battle.net account. That's all. You have too much invested in WoW to consider scrapping it to do it all again in another MMO. Well, yes. Well, see, here's my feeling. Let's say a great MMO suddenly came out that I would actually, if I gave it a chance, absolutely love. There is no way I would give it that chance. Because in order to find out whether you'd be really for it, you've got to think in an MMO, it's going to take you a certain amount of time to get to level cap. Then you're going to start to need to do the end game. And realistically, you're going to need a guild to do that. Which means you're going to need to set a certain amount of time aside each week where together you can do the harder end game content. And you're probably going to have to do that for some months to see the hardest content and experience it properly before you can make a judgment. So in other words, you've got to play an MMO seriously for several months to find out if it's any good. And yes, you're not going to give up the game that you know you enjoy in order to try another one out. So, yes. You only have so much time per day, and if you have an active sub, any free time in the beta would be an opportunity cost to your current WoW experience. Well, the thing is, though, that by the time the alpha and the beta comes out, there isn't a lot else to do in the game. You're into your you're into your sort of lead in, aren't you? I mean, when did the alpha? The alpha came out in like, it was either January or February. I can't remember exactly. It might have been February. And I got in on like the third week, I think it was. By that time, wasn't much doing. There wasn't a lot to do, really. If you're in a high progress guild, you've already got, well, Antora's probably down to 1 or 2 nights at that point. What else are you doing in the game? I mean, some people will be chasing achievements still and doing the mage towers on all 36 of their specs. You know, but for those of us who just basically want to raid, there's not that much to do. But for some people there will be. I mean, there are some people, for example, like in Raiding Guild, and we did raid testing, some people who would always, even though they were in the beta, they would always make a character level 110 and just have it scaled up because they didn't want to play through the beta because they don't want to ruin the experience for themselves when it goes live, which is fair enough. I personally don't find that it does ruin my experience. I have to say. So I'm okay with that. I don't feel that I pay a penalty at all. There's been a new Lord of the Rings MMO announced. Wow, well, there's been a new Lord of the Rings. It's not actually, no, you're wrong on both, Cat. It's not a Lord of the Rings game because it says it takes place before the events of Lord of the Rings. So it's a Tolkien Middle-earth based game. That's all we know about it. We don't even know it's an MMO, although I will grant you it sounds bloody... It sounds like it probably is. But it's not a Lord of the Rings one, technically. It does not take place during the War of the Ring. I don't know when it takes place. I would still imagine it takes place in the Third Age. But I don't know that because there's hardly any information out on it. Where are we? That is how the community suffers. Everyone is high off their own fans in beta when they could be griefing players with their gear or walking around showing off. Who shows off these days, though? It's all transmogged. There was a time when people would parade what I used to call the Ironforge catwalk, where you'd get people all around the bank and around the mailbox, and if they were particularly wanting to peacock, they'd stand on the little thing over the bridge between the auction house and the bank. They'd stand on one of the struts, the little buttresses things, to invite people to look at them. It's, oh, they've got fancy shiny gear. I will inspect them and admire their gear. Then I will say, cool gear, bro. You'd get all that going on. None of it happens anymore because you cannot tell the difference between a peasant and a world first raider. Because everyone transmogs into something that was produced that looks a lot better from 5 years ago. Not everyone is done with the expansion when the next one launches. No, indeed. But then a large proportion of the people who get earlier access tend to be the ones who have done with it. Anyway, sorry, we were talking about the Tolkien Middle-earth one. Could you lose time out of WoW to level a tune in that? Probably not. Not unless you did it casually now, indeed. That's the thing, yeah. If another MMO comes out, for the majority of people, to start a new game, you have to give something up. That's why when I'm sort of getting back into Warhammer, people can say, oh, you should play Total War Warhammer. It's like, no. You're missing the point. I have more than enough computer games. I can't even spend as much time playing computer games as I would like. I want to play physically. I want to roll dice. You can also cannot tell if anybody who is well equipped can actually play well. No. Well, I don't think you ever could, to be honest. Do I think raid logging is viable currently? With Mythic Plus? Oh, no, not at all. I think that died a death in Legion. I think the game lost a lot of good Mythic raid. Now, I'll grant you, I do not like, and I've never liked in a guild, raid loggers. Don't like it. It's antisocial. But there were some very good Mythic quality raiders who used to do it. They were perfectly good enough. No issue there. And we just lost them wholesale in Legion from the raiding community. It's not at all viable. Not at all. It's ultimately why I had to stop raiding. If I could have raid logged, I might have tried out Mythic raiding in Uldir at least. Because because the guild I was in anyway was only going to do it 2 nights a week. Was it 2? Pretty sure it's 2. Can't remember now. Shit. But it was not going to be that much. I sort of felt that it would probably be okay. But anyway. Are Ret Pal good end game? Depends at what level you're talking about. There are certain aspects of some, not all, Uldir bosses that are not good for Rets. And for pushing the very high Mythic plus keys, AoE is not great. I don't think it's bad, and I am more than holding my own in my own personal group, but we are not pushing super high keys. We only did our first plus 10 last week. Or this week, technically still, because it's still this week in Europe. But in those groups, I do still manage overall to top the DPS. But then part of that is arguably because people die and I get the retribution buff. If people didn't die, I would not be doing the most damage. I wouldn't be lagging way behind either. You know, because I make up for it once we're down to like one target or a boss or something. You thought Guild Wars 2 and Elder Scrolls Online. Elder Scrolls Online, I think, is superb, but I would not enjoy the end game because it has animation cancelling in it, and I just think that's degenerate gameplay. I hate anything that you do that basically takes advantage of just the way the game system works and doesn't feel a natural thing for your character to be doing. I just don't like it. Oh, Ben, excuse me. And unfortunately, that's in Elder Scrolls Online. As a casual, it's an amazing game. It has a way, way better experience than WoW. For the casual content, it's way better than WoW. To which you might wonder, why the bloody hell am I playing WoW and I haven't played Elder Scrolls Online for about a month? The reason is simple, because as someone said earlier on, I am much more invested in this game. I have played Warcraft 1, Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3, World of Warcraft in every expansion, although not all of Wrath and Cataclysm, but in every expansion. I'm massively invested in this game and its story and my character. I am not invested in Elder Scrolls Online, and I have never played any of the actual Elder Scrolls games. So, even though it's a better experience, that role-playing element doesn't have the same draw for me. Why even stay stubbed? Well, someone pointed out this week, to be fair, that Blizzard initially said that the game will launch no later than 21st of September. So technically we're 4 days into the new expansion. You could look at it like that. You hated animation cancelling, it was the main reason you quit. Yeah, so yeah, it would be, if I was playing it seriously, it would be for me. When are we getting more Warhammer? Well, here's the thing about the Warhammer, just really quickly. So I found a gaming group. There is no... But I'm going to have to work on getting... It seems to me, this is how it seems. There isn't a flourishing Age of Sigmar community within that gaming group. But there are several people who would like to play it. So I'm going to really try and chiv them on. But I'm not going to be getting any top quality games. To begin with, it's only likely to be 1,000 points. They are talking about doing a 1,500 point campaign. But again, what I live for are the 2,000 point games. And it looks to me like it's going to be a while before I can get into any of that. Because I've got to get them to build it all up. And in terms of doing... I would love to do battle reports. I'd absolutely love it. But the only way to be able to do it, I think, realistically, is for me to set up an area downstairs in my kitchen. I'm going to test it out this weekend. And I still need to be within the group long enough for, A, them to learn how to play properly, and for us all to agree that we're not axe murderers, so that they'll come to my house and do it. And even then, I don't know that I'd be able to do them regularly. So that's what I'd love to do, but you need the source material. You need the people to play with. And I need to solve the technical problems on there. But there will be more Warhammer videos there will be Warhammer videos at some point. I've been massively busy this week, basically. I still hope to be able to get something out this week. In fact, 2 things this week, and we'll have to, But hopefully after this week, it will quiet down a bit. It's still going to be massively busy at work for the next 3 months, I think. But this week was particularly busy. I am an avid WoW enthusiast. What has to happen for me to quit WoW? At this point, see, here's the thing. I always said, for many years I said, even a year ago, if you'd have asked me, if you had to quit raiding, would you still play WoW? The answer would probably be no. Because, like I've just said, there are other games that do the casual experience better. But when it came down to it, I'm still playing it. And the reason for that is that even as a casual, like I say, I'm really invested in it. So what it would have to do for me to quit WoW is WoW would have to stop. I strongly suspect what would have to happen for me to quit WoW is WoW would actually need the plug pulling. So, Because if I'm enjoying it, which I never believed I could, I never believed I could enjoy the... That's why I remember when I quit in Early Wrath, the reason I quit was because I thought they'd basically killed off raiding. I wasn't interested in the other aspects of the game. It was okay, but not enough to keep me playing it. So I went off and did other games. Lord of the Rings Online, Warhammer Online were the two I ended up in. But now I'm finding, actually, I can play casually. You know, I'm not even doing normal or heroic raiding. And I'm okay with it. I'm absolutely fine with it. Will I raid Mythic Siege of Zul'Daz? I work... What is going to be basically happening in my non-gaming life is simply not going to allow me to raid at all, certainly not Mythic, surely for the next year and a half. Quite incredible. You know, I do not have time. I am, like, here's the thing, I've gone casual and I am still rushed. I am still massively busy all the time. I'm not sat there with my feet up. I mean, if I was sat there twiddling my thumbs, there'd be like 2 videos a day for a start. There are not. Because I am actually, if anything, busier than I was 6 months ago when I was Mythic raided. So, yeah. I'm not interested in cutting... Well, I'll say that. I might get cutting edge, but I'm only going to get cutting edge if the guild I'm in does an outrun and I get into that. Because I'm not going to try and get into pugs. It's the time. I play twice a week. That's basically... And even that is, you know... putting aside time that sometimes seems like it's a bit of a push, sometimes it doesn't. Why do Blizz keep trying stuff like Warfronts and they're terrible at it? Well, they have to try something. It's a glorified pre-patch event. Well, we'll give it time. It may be that the first one was not the best example. It may be that the first one was just the simplest to put together and that they've got grand plans for some of the later ones. That is entirely possible. So I'm going to give him time on it. You have the time invested. You already know the game, so no having to start from scratch. That's what keeps you playing. Yes, yeah, well, that's another thing. You know that you can play this game. You don't know that you'd be any good at another one. This is also true. How do I feel about doing arena or RBGs for gear rather than raiding? I would hate the concept. Obviously, I've not done it because I don't like it. I don't have to. If I were still a Mythic Raider... I would have felt compelled to do arenas, wouldn't I? Let's be honest. You know, the PvP rewards were significant. You know, raiders were getting upgrades from them. I would have had to do it. And I would have despised that. But I don't have to do it, so I didn't. I should actually try to spend a little money on a giant server. I don't think... Well, they could easily do that. I think they've already got the technology to do it. I really think the only reason they haven't done it is because of transfer money. But it's so stupid because they might get some money from transfers, but they lose players who find themselves on a server where they can't find a suitable guild for themselves. It's mad. Was Legion my favourite expansion raided so far? No, God, no. No, not at all. From an objective point of view, I judge Legion to be a really good expansion. But it wasn't an enjoyable expansion for me, personally. WoD was a way better expansion for me. Way better. MOP was probably my favourite expansion from a raiding point of view. Basically, my top 3, from a raiding point of view, from my experience in it, would simply be TBC, MOP, and WoD, actually. Not in that order. Actually, I would put MOP top. I would say MOP was the best raiding experience for me. Then TBC. TBC, I actually cleared it all at a really high, well, relatively high world rank, like 70 or something. So from that point of view, it was quite good. And then WoD I enjoyed as well. So, is there anything I think Blizzard could do to get more people raiding? Or will something like raiding always have a huge barrier to entry? Right. I do think they are doing good work on increasing the number of people who get into raiding. Legion saw a massive explosion in the number of people doing all forms of raiding, including Mythic. So I do think they're doing good work there. If I'm honest, and I've said this before, I wouldn't mind seeing as an experiment, you can't really do it as an experiment, that's the problem. I wouldn't mind knowing what the effect would be if they just removed normal raiding. If you just had LFR, Heroic, and Mythic. But maybe that would be too big a risk. But in general terms, I think they could do more. I think they could help, certainly, by putting in some decent guild finding tools into the game. We shouldn't have to rely on WoW Progress. I mean, WoW Progress is the best thing going, but it's not great. You know, they should have their own raid finding tools, guild finding tools, sorry, good ones. Not the shit we've got, the good ones in there. But, you know. PvP is actually pretty efficient for gearing if you can stand it. Yeah, well, I can't. There's some games where I love the PvP. I love the PvP in Elder Scrolls Online. I loved it in Warhammer Online. I absolutely hate it in World of Warcraft. But yeah, I know PvP does give good rewards. And if you're into it, absolutely. I would have hated it. I would have done it because you've got to get gear from wherever you can get it from as a Mythic Raider. I would not have liked it. You get 370 gear at 1800, yeah. See, I don't even know whether, you know, what that is. I don't know how difficult that is. I imagine not that hard. PvP is half the game. No, it's not. Just re-roll Prop Pally. It will smash everything. It's not a case of smashing everything. I just dislike PvP in this game. It's boring. It's just a scrum. It's a big old brawl. That's all PvP. In all of its forms. In all of its forms, PvP in WoW is a brawl. What I want is a battle. It's a bit like... So going back to I went to the tabletop gaming club last night. Warhammer players and stuff like that. And there's people... Like, first of all, a fella comes up to me trying to get me to play this game he wants people to play. And it's like, no, do you know what? Age of Sigma. Age of Sigma, me. I ain't playing anything else. And there's other people talking about these other games. Oh, you should try playing this. And yeah, I've heard of these games. I'm not interested. They're these small games that you can pick up really quickly and play really quickly. Oh, you can play it over a lunchtime. Yeah, not interested. I'm interested in the big strategic games. And that's what I would want of PvP. Strategic games, that basically means sieges. Proper sieges as well. Not one focal point like in Wintergrasp. Actual sieges where you could be attacking enemy fortification, but you've got another one as well, and the enemy might attacking that, and you can organise yourselves into large warbands to do the bigger work, or you could small warbands to pick off stragglers, or on an individual basis to act as a scout. So much scope when world PvP is done well. I do want PvP like Warhammer used to do. Obviously, but I'm not saying Warhammer Online got it perfect. You know, because the game, let's face it, Warhammer Online did not have very high production values. But the concept of it was sound and it was fun. It was enjoyable. I mean, it's not like I just dipped into it now and then. I was actually in a guild in Warhammer Online and we went out doing PvP, proper organised PvP. That's what I did. At least as often as I would have been raiding if I'd have still been playing World of Warcraft. And it was actually fun. So it can be fun. I mean, some people find it funny. Wow, that's fair enough. Yeah. Elder Scrolls Online, I think, is really great as well. In terms of its stuff. Yeah, I love it. I mean, the last few times I've gone into Elder Scrolls Online and done some PvP, I've not even been able to get into a group. I've just been solo, but I still have fun there. I get my head blown off loads of times, but it's still fun. It's fun because you're doing a siege. You're thinking about stuff. You're not just thinking about locking down the healer and mugging the rogue. You're just wondering when Blizzard will start classic game vanilla. Well, this is the thing, isn't it? BlizzCon is not far away. There has to... Basically, here's what I think will happen. On BlizzCon... No. At BlizzCon, there'll be blood in the exhibition hall if they don't announce something. I think they're going to get out, because I think they've appointed the team, haven't they? I think they have. So I imagine what they'll do is have that team assemble to answer questions on it. It's not coming out imminently. Star Wars: The Old Republic. You see, I wasn't keen on the PvP in Star Wars, I have to say. I mean, it's the thing. It's different, different people like different things, I suppose. You used to play a Bright Wizard. You were an arsehole then. Complete arsehole. All I remember, what used to happen, the Bright Wizards were stupidly overpowered. They had this ability. It was like an AoE ability. And all you would do is you'd have a line of them with a tank putting guard on them, which, reduced the bonus result. And they used to just walk in a line towards you. They'd just steamroll over everything. Bright Wizards were horrendous. That was the one bad side of PvP. They were just stupid. Anyway, sorry. Your experience with large-scale PvP like Siege is that lag usually plays a part in it. That and range classes are generally favoured. Your experience is limited to ESO and Guild Wars 2 versus in World v World. I mean, obviously, where lag does hit, then that causes problems. And it certainly hit a few times in Warhammer Online. But where it doesn't, it's great fun. Am I looking into that new MMO that they say is really focused on PvP? I would never look at any MMO that says it's focused on PvP. To be honest, I'm not even looking for a new MMO at the moment. I've already got, because I paid into the Ashes of Creation, at some point next year, I imagine, if it's on schedule, I should be getting into the beta on that. And I will then I will put aside some time to try that out. I'm not really looking for another one at the moment at all, or even another computer game. I don't know. We'll see. It looks like it might have some, from my point of view, for what I've paid for it. If it gives me a couple of months of just enjoyment, then it'll be all right. And if it's longer than that, all to the better. I don't think it'll be Ian's fault. Ian Hazacostas has not really got anything to do with Classic WoW. It's not really. I don't think it should have anything to do with him. They're going to release between the last patch and the next live expansion. They may do, and it would make sense for them to do that. Possibly, yeah. But what they certainly have to do is, surely they've got to say something tangible this time. Because they announced it at BlizzCon to great fanfare. Nothing since. Nothing. Ian is calling everything degenerate these days. Yeah, he called defensives where you actively seek out taking damage degenerate. He did not answer my tweet where I said, oh, great, yeah, I agree. So when are we changing Shield of Vengeance then? Nothing. Not a sausage. Ashes of Creation looks quite promising, but you're worried about the immersion because the lore and world building seem pretty weak. I imagine they would see. The thing is, an MMO that's not based on an established world always will be. The first, always look at, whenever you imagine a well-established world, like the World of Warcraft, for example, you look at the story from Warcraft 1. There's virtually none of it, Same with Warhammer, same with Dungeons and Dragons, same with everything. The world takes a long time to develop. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. I would focus more on, is the game enjoyable? Does it work relatively well? Because when it first comes out, there might be some issues with it. And because the worry about a crowd-funded project, the concern is always, are they going to come to a point where they're sort of running out of money and they have to release it to be able to get some more money to actually finish it off, and that you end up with a 6-month period of a load of shit while they use the money gained from sales to fix it? You really want them to make a 40k MMO or a fantasy done right? I would prefer the fantasy done right. I have a bit of a thing, and I don't know why it is. I just don't like sci-fi games that much. I'm actually okay with 40k a bit, but I would always prefer fantasy. But generally speaking, I do not enjoy sci-fi games, and I've no idea why. I enjoy science fiction films and books. Even though even then I would still say I preferred fantasy. But for some reason, games, if it's sci-fi, you can have two games that are actually identical from a gameplay point of view, but one of them's sci-fi and one isn't. The only reason I like Star Wars is because of lightsabers. I just view Star Wars as fantasy because of lightsabers, swords. Imagine able to play Necrons as a race or Tau. Tau, I never liked Tau. They look like something you get out of a free with a packet of cornflakes. With the threat changes and incoming taunt changes, do you feel as though thought over time they've simplified DPS and healing, but made the tank's life much harder? No. I don't think good... I said this at the start. I don't think good tanks have a problem with this at all. I've not heard any good tanks have a problem with it. In my own Mythic Plus group, where our tank is not an experienced tank, he's not had any threat issues at all. So no. I think they just redressed it to prevent tanking being a complete snooze fest, that's all. That's all I think of it. Because all tanking has been is swapping at the right time with the other tank in a raid and using your active mitigation at the right time or calling for externals at the right time. Pretty much all there's been to it. And I've known good tanks who say they've been disappointed with their experience in the game for the past few years. So I just see it as making it a role again where it really wasn't before. If I like board games, no. Large-scale battle games, strategy games. This is why, with Age of Sigmar, what I really want to play are 2,000-point games. Not 1,000-point games. I will play those. But I want 2,000-point games. And the reason is, in a 1,000-point army, all you can have is a few disparate units. In a 2,000-point army, you can have units that you have put in there specifically to work together, okay, to support each other. There's a certain symbiosis, and you have a battle plan. It's very difficult to do that with a very small game. I want a larger game, more complex strategies. You're not holding your breath for a lot of news for it, but Diablo is the main interest of this year's BlizzCon. Well, maybe there would be a Diablo MMO. I mean, I really do think Blizzard could well be thinking about another MMO for one of their other IPs, and if not StarCraft, then Diablo. I think it would probably suit StarCraft better, even though I wouldn't want to try that out myself because, you know, sci-fi. Apparently it has to do with vengeance not being the game. Yes, it does. It's basically the threat changes, or they've said, and it's perfectly plausible, it's back from the time when vengeance existed in MoP, and it doesn't anymore, and they're just someone's piped up and gone, by the way, we don't really need that much threat on a taunt. And it's totally valid. The thing is, taunt is not a major aspect of tank. It's a necessary tool, but you're not using taunt that often, really. Unless things are not going well. No, they haven't changed taunt. They are going to change taunt, though, but it's not changing taunt. It's just reducing threat a little bit, not getting rid of it. Yes, I know, yeah. They've clarified it all now. It's all sort of fine. Do I play Total Warhammer? No, I'm not playing any more new computer games. I already have. Right, I play WoW twice a week. I have to play, well, I say have to, I want to, play Lord of the Rings online once a week, but I'm doing video series on that, so that's sort of motivating me to do that. God, that reminds me, I haven't planned my this week's Lord of the Rings online video, shit. I have, but do not play Star Wars The Old Republic, because time. I have, but do not play Elder Scrolls Online, because time. So I already have 2 games which I have active subscriptions for, and do not play. And I want to play them. If I had more time, I would play them. But I don't. So the last thing I need right now is a new computer game. In fact, the worst thing that could actually happen to me at the moment is that I get an email saying, oh, you now have access to the Ashes of Creation beta. Because that should happen in the next year or so, not necessarily now. That would be the worst timing. Do I believe Melee DPS in a good spot in BFA? Good God, no. No, not on your Nelly. I think it's appalling. Absolutely an appalling spot. There are lots of good... I don't think it's a particular problem for Mythic Plus Dungeons, I have to say, from what I've seen. But for raids, for Uldir, ooh, it's not at all in a good spot. There are lots of good games. It doesn't matter how good they are in thinking games. I have no time for new computer games. I missed playing with people and physical games. You're excited for the Azure Creation class system. Seems flexible. Lots of I'm always wary though. A game in development always sounds fantastic because what you get from the developers is aspirations. It's a bit like Ian Hazakostas when he ruined my stream last week, giving out all those features for 8.1. But how much actual detail did we get? None. What we got was aspirations. They explain how they intend it to work. Maybe it will work like that, and maybe it won't. And it's the same thing with a game in development. They're going to explain how it's going to work until it actually works like that. And obviously, I've not been following how it's been progressing. Every now and then, Lazy Peon throws a video out about it. I'll watch that. Fever occasionally as well. But generally speaking, I've not really been following it very closely. But yeah, until it's done and it's working, it's aspirational. Diablo MMO ARPG. Massive self-generated wilderness between civilized areas where quest lines run, dungeons with bosses that require coordination. Is that what you're hoping for, or is that what they've announced? Do I think they're designing classes around the systems they want to implement rather than the other way around? The thing is, what they promised for BFA was that there would be some coordination between the class design team and the encounter design team, which is interesting in two ways. First of all, it basically, if you didn't know it before anyway, was an announcement to the world that there has previously been zero coordination between the class design team and the encounter design team, or indeed between any teams in the game. That's the big problem with it, no coordination. But secondly, that they recognise that there should be coordination. However, here is the problem. The class design team have to finish their work. Okay, there's tuning, but they have to finish the actual sets and the abilities basically at the start of the expansion. But the encounter design team carries on throughout. So there is no coordination. And certainly, here's the thing. If you were going to get coordination between a class design team and an encounter design team, there is zero way you would design bosses that means you can only afford to take 1 or 2 melee. That's just not happening. So I don't believe that they've done it. All I believe is that they recognise that they should do it. But I don't think they've done it. Without wanting to bash Ian Hazakostas still further, I just don't think he's capable of putting management... To be fair to him, those management structures were clearly not in place before he became the game, the chief designer. Game director, that was the word I was trying to think of. So they weren't in place before, so it's not his fault that they weren't in place, but he also has no idea how to put them in place. Or he's meeting massive resistance. Maybe he does know how, and he's just getting the most horrendous resistance to implementing it. I don't know. But what I do know is there's clearly no significant coordination going on still. So I think it's totally separate. Class design and counter design, it's all completely separate. And then every now and then, I feel sorry for the class designers this time round, because first of all, they were given no time to make radical changes because they were told, we don't need radical changes, we just need a few tweaks. And then it's, actually, no, we need radical changes. You've got no time to do it in. And then they were working on them, and then all of a sudden, they threw in that, we're going to change a load of global cooldowns, which is going to break a load of classes, by the way. You know, so the class design team were constantly having their goalposts moved. So they were incapable of being able to plan for the launch because constantly other people were giving them philosophies to follow and then changing them. That's the thing. They kept changing their class design philosophy throughout. And this isn't the class designers doing it. This is from on high. Yeah, absolutely awful. Treating them like mushrooms, aren't they? It doesn't seem there's much coordination. No, I don't think there's any. They only said they were going to have coordination between the encounter design team and the class design team. I don't believe there is any. You're working on Fetid and looking to Zul. Looks like you still have... No, yeah. Fetid and Zul look really bad for melee. I mean, I don't think Mithrax is going to be a walk in the park either. I don't think... You know, the more melee you have on Mithrax, you can have a certain amount, and it's fine. But beyond that, because you've got to be able to... It's one of those... It's a bit like Argus. There's only so much... Okay, it's a bigger boss than Argus, thank God. There's only so much room around it, and when you spawn your little orb thing, you can't go back there again, so... Rexdroid got banned for the one-shot, did they? I don't actually know how they did it, so if how they did it was with an exploit, then, well, they know what they're doing, and that you do get banned for that, but I don't know how they did it. Oh, is it? Oh, it's a suspension, really, rather, isn't it? Okay. Oh, well, they got internet famous. It's probably worth a month's suspension, maybe. But yeah, I've had a huge problem with class, because class design for me is the most important issue, because, like I say, not everyone does raiding, not everyone does dungeons, not everyone does any piece of content, but everyone plays a class. You know, Blizzard banned you from their stream for asking why the game was being designed around tablets. I'm amazed at that, because I don't believe they even read their streams. I don't actually know why they stream live anyway, because they never respond to the comments. You hate pugging melee for Mithrax. What, you mean finding melee for Mithrax? Or actually trying to get into a pug as melee? You always think it's funny when players have an idea and try something useful in game, using game mechanics, then get you banned for it. If you know, an exploit, if you know it's not supposed to work like that, it is an exploit, and you know, it is bannable. It's in the terms and conditions. Yeah, people really can't complain. Where there is a complaint is where it isn't an, you know, where Blizzard ban people. It doesn't happen very often, but it has happened, where you look at it and you think, well, it's not actually an exploit. So, you know, Limit got caught out by that on Mythic Hellier in Legion, where in actual fact wasn't actually an exploit. You got a perma ban on the forums because your character name is the same on Twitch as it is in WoW. What? Are you sure about this? I think maybe just there's someone at Blizzard got it in for you. That all sounds a bit weird to me. Celestalon, I didn't say anything about him, but he is a complete bonehead. He's gone though. He's gone elsewhere. Where's he gone? He's gone to a game I don't play, so he's safely out of harm's way now. I can't remember what it is now. Overwatch or Heroes or something, don't care. Or maybe it was Hearthstone. Yeah, he'd probably like Hearthstone. Hearthstone's got a bit of blue in it. Oh, well, Celestalon is famously very spiky. He's very, very fragile ego. Oh, letting Melee into your Mithrax group. Yeah, well. The thing is, you can all end up bubbling each other if they don't know how to deal with that mechanic. It's a right mess. You have to one, know what to do, and two, even then, you still have to pay attention. You can abuse battle res and mass res in the third room of Mother and just zerg it out. One of the first, if it might have been the first raid test, you could just basically take a load of rogues and paladins, bubble right through to the end, and zerg it down there as well. But if there is a thing like that, that shouldn't. Obviously, that sounds like a bug if that's the case, then, Sufferic. Because that certainly shouldn't be happening. And arguably would be an exploit. I think with some, though, they give the benefit of the doubt. Yeah, so I think it depends. You try to talk to the... all right, yeah. LFR Zul trash. Oh, is Zul... Oh, no, is the second world including Zul? I suppose it would. Is it? Oh, okay. The Zul trash is ridiculous on all modes, though. I distinctly remember in the beta, when we were testing Zul Reborn, there was a particular test where they dumped us right in the middle of the trash. So when you entered it, you dumped you in the middle of it. Instead of on a nice, safe set of stairs, in the middle of the trash. So we just kept going in and wiping until we could clear ourselves a safe little area. I think they fixed it about half an hour later. He was arguing with you on Twitter. I upset Celestial on it in the Legion beta, actually, on the forums. I got him well mad. You would like to see them add a tint behind the icon for raid gear to show when it's dropped. So world first get like fiery gold before curve shiny silver prior to next raid, etc. What? What, so you only get shiny gear if it's new? Is that what you mean? Oh, he's not always angry. Celestial isn't always angry. He's delightful as long as you're telling him how great he is. Oh, he's like a little kitten if you tell him he's fantastic. It's only when you tell him he's not fantastic he gets annoyed. It would let people show off their gear when they got their gear. Yeah, but then some bugger gets it later on and it's all fiery for them, isn't it? Because they've got it late. No. So you haven't got any Azerite from your weekly Mythic cache either. Yes, it's all a bit of a mess. Azerite gear from Mythic Plus Dungeons, a huge mess. I would feel calmer about it if Blizzard were at least acknowledging that they need to think about it. Because I don't at the moment. I imagine they've got a massive list of priorities. Anything that they're not publicly talking about, I'm guessing is not very high on the list. Even though it may be on the list. I just suspect it's not particularly high. Yeah. They need to make one Azerite, one normal. I mean, that would... You could argue that could be a valid way to do it. You know, I think the concern always with the multiple pieces of gear is the potential for item level to go up too quickly. But if it was always one Azerite piece, as you say, and one other piece, then you can only equip 3 pieces of Azerite gear anyway, so there would be a limit to it. What would my opinion be with player guild housing? They should do it. I've done videos on it, you know, and it's maddening to me that they don't. It's ridiculous. I think it's stupid. It baffles me. The fact that they do not see the attractive power of cosmetic content is amazing. I cannot understand it. I don't understand them. The only thing that allows me to even rationalise it is that a lot of the senior developers came from a raiding background, and maybe because they don't see the value in cosmetic gear, they can't understand how millions of others would. That's all I can think of. You don't like the continuing waste of resources messing about with Azerite traits. Well, no, but unfortunately in the position we are now, they have to. You know, I wish they'd have seen the problems before last BlizzCon so they could change stream and just change it to be basically like the last artifact system. Hi, Dr. Sinister. But unfortunately, the situation we're in now, it's really difficult to know what this, you know, they've got to. They've painted themselves in a corner over it. It's annoying how they argue about there apparently being nothing to do there. Players will find and make things happen like meetings. Nothing to do where, sorry. Oh, the player housing. Yeah, absolutely. Of course it would. I mean, the fact that you could have all the loads of stuff that you can gain from doing lots of bits of content that you could then put in your house. People will spend months tarting out a house and then showing it, you know, on YouTube, Instagram, whatever. Hi, Andrew. Thank you. No problem. You started playing WoW this expansion and you don't know if you should main a human palette or make another character 120 and then make a Lightforged Draenei Paladin. Well, if you only just started playing the game, it won't matter that much. All I would say is the human paladin gets a buff to reputation, which in what is certainly at the start of the expansion, seemingly a reputation-heavy game, that's going to be useful. But it depends on what sort of endgame you ultimately want to play. You've never understood why player housing would be that valuable. Because for a lot of people, a lot of people want to role-playing game is about customizing your character. You can't customize it with gear because the gear is fleeting. You know, you can have the best gear in the game right now and then stop playing for a month and all of a sudden you haven't, or nowhere near. Whereas cosmetic stuff is there. You make a super awesome house, it's still a super awesome house in 5 years' time. You know. And the amount of time people can spend in it and will spend it. You can see this in games that have player housing. Is it just you or does the grind for AP in this expansion feel longer than Legion? Well, I can't really... It's impossible for me to judge because I'm looking at it from a completely different point of view. Because I'm doing it as a casual now. The grind for the AP for me is incredibly long because I'm hardly grinding any AP. My neck at the moment is only 20 because I don't do anything. So I don't know. I'm afraid I really don't know. It's as if other MMOs don't. ESO is a great example of it. Yes, absolutely. You miss your garrison. I don't miss the garrison. The garrison was appalling. The fact that people would even consider it on the same level as player housing was massively upsetting to me. Because it misses the point. Player housing is about personalising. There was nothing you could do to personalise the garrison. The only way my garrison is personalised is because I have a Christmas tree there and a load of NPCs in Santa outfits all the way through the year. That was my last desperate attempt to stamp my mark on it because probably no one in the world has a garrison with a Christmas tree in it in July. But then maybe there is. You would like to see them... Oh, you've said that. Stop saying it again. It can be a huge progression path without a power... Yeah, of course. The problem with power increases, they see it as the only carrot to dangle. And that's how we end up with things like bloody artifact power. Because it's the only way they say, oh, we need to keep people subscribed. The people who stop subscribing are the ones who don't care about the power of their character. They just want to do the content. Oh, we'll give them some more gear. They don't give a shit. What they would care about is customizing their character. The AP grind is better this time because you don't really get much after Nec 23. There is that aspect of it. There was only once really in Legion before the whole thing basically finished, when you could have finished your artifacts. I suppose the same thing is, whereas you can get to whatever level is needed to unlock the item level thing on whatever. If you're a mythic raid, you obviously got to do more. So yes, I suppose there's a bit of a limit that way, but the experience may be worse. I don't know. I can't say. You have Halloween all year. You're pretty casual yourself. Aside from the odd raid every now and then, your neck is only level 21. Mine's only 20. At the moment, you've got a few pieces from Uldir with traits that you want unlocked. Island exhibitions are just boring. Started doing them only for the match. Yeah, they are boring. And I did them once in a pug and thought, no. How outrageous is it that they will not let me transmog fishing rods? I think it's outrageous that no matter what they do in BFA, they will never allow me to have the really cool Kul Tiran transmog look. I mean, the good stuff, the leather stuff, the nice coat, the sort of, what's his name now? Flynn. That sort of transmog. There's a few NPCs with that really cool, the coats and stuff. That's awesome. And it's distressing to me that even if they allow something like that for players like rogues and, leather wearers, I, as a paladin, will never be able to use it. I find that appalling. You used to have this fishing rod that was classified as a main hand sword. Blizzard deleted it during pre-patch, yeah. Yeah, that's the problem. If you actually whip out your fishing rod, because I have a problem with this, like sometimes, I suppose these days you don't, because you used to have to have a fishing rod in your hand. Now you don't, but I still have the Kalawak, or the Walrus people one. Is that what they're called? But if you get it out and then something attacks you, I'm a bit limited as a paladin. I have to swap my weapon in to be able to actually hit it back. The AP grind is better for most people. You imagine it's as long as ever for Mythic Raiders. Yeah, as they know new and higher levels will be needed. But also, I mean, I don't think they even get any from raiding. It's like, you don't get AP from the content that you're naturally doing. That's what's annoying for me. I think Mythic Raiders should get enough just from raiding. They shouldn't have to do other content to get AP. If they wanted to do it, then sure. I really don't get it. Because islands have other rewards as well. If people want to do islands for the more cosmetic stuff, which plenty of people do, then that's fine. Same with Warfront. Well, Warfronts weren't really an AP source anyway. Mythic Plus Dungeons don't give you any, really. Not much, if at all. Oh, it gives you a little bit, I suppose, but not very much. So that's disappointing. I mean, okay, I don't want to go back to Legion days where you had to run Mythic Plus for the AP. That was stupid as well. But you should get enough from just doing what is a reasonable amount of content each week, no matter what the content is. That way you're genuinely letting people choose what content they want to do. Your bag is now 30% Azerite armor. Oh, I took advantage of being casual and just deleted all mine. Because I'd be the same. I'd hoard loads of pieces for different situations. And then on Sunday, I just looked at it and I just thought to myself, I'm casual. I don't have to min-max. I'll just delete it all. Transmog shouldn't be bound by class or armor since it's just cosmetic. Exactly, I know that. Yeah, I mean, it's... again, I don't get it. I don't get it. Why it has to be a thing. Are they worried that someone might see me running across the battlefield and confuse me for a monk? Is that the problem? And would that be a problem? It just seems mad. 23 gets you the first 2 rings on 385 gear. Tanks get screwed though, since the 3rd ring is much more important to them. Yeah, poor old tanks. People complain that they have to do Dungeon Raid for AP. Yeah. No, what I'm not saying that it should. What I'm saying is you should get AP from spending roughly the same amount of time everywhere, whatever content you do. AP only exists to keep people subscribed. It's there to keep people playing so that they are going to stay subscribed. Therefore, you should just be able to get it by doing the content you want to do. You want to do raiding? Well, bosses will drop a decent amount of it. Or you want to do world quests? World quests will drop a decent amount, which they sort of do. You know, if you want to do islands, whatever you want to do, it should just drop it. So that you never think, oh, I as a raider, oh, now I feel I have to do Mythic plus dungeons to get AP. No, because you're going to get enough from your raiding. You could see a big chunk of AP from Mythic. I think it would be poor overall game design to get it all from there, though. But, well, I mean, the thing is, for players who are going to stay subscribed because there is some aspect of the game that they enjoy playing regularly, they shouldn't need AP. AP isn't put in the game for them. It makes no sense. Why? Why is it in the game for them? It's a hassle, in fact, because it means you now can get a piece of Azerite gear that's a big upgrade, but you can't unlock the traits because you haven't got enough AP. So it's actually a hassle for like serious, or not even serious players, but regular players. It's there to incentivize people who aren't regular players. And they're not going to do Mythic Raiding anyway. Or loads of Mythic Plus dungeons, if they do any at all. It just doesn't seem like joined up thinking to me. There's no feeling greater than downing a boss, getting no loot, but plus 24 AP. It's not all about the loot. Downing the boss is the important thing. That's the exciting thing. I've never been excited. Well, have I? Maybe I have once or twice about a piece of gear. If a piece of gear has eluded you for like 6 months, all right, you can get excited then. I've been excited by that. No, I'm lying. I have been excited by gear that just hasn't dropped for months and suddenly it does. But beyond that, I don't get excited about gear just because it's an upgrade. You would enjoy the game so much more if you could just only do raids and dungeons. Well, quite exactly. So would many. You like the raiding, but you rarely do dungeons of any level, so you get your AP from raids alone. Oh dear, that's not going to be much. Your roommate has 2385 armour, but neck 19. Gutted. Actually, who's that more annoying for? Is that more annoying for them or for the other people who could unlock those pieces but don't have 385 Azerite gear? That just sounds like a situation where everyone's pissed off to me. 19 neck. How does that even happen? That by definition, anyone who's got a lower neck level than me isn't even playing the game. Like, what I do is at some point during the weekend, like last week it was Friday, this week it's going to either be Saturday or Sunday, we group together with the people, you know, this social group of people, and we do Mythic Plus dungeons for a few hours. And then on either Sunday or Wednesday, I will do a stream where I do some world quests. That is my World of Warcraft. That's it. And I have 20. There's no world quests or islands. Well, I don't do any islands. Doesn't do any world quests. Okay, fine. Well, that might explain it then. What about when you... The thing is, though, if this is someone who's only doing a plus 10 and raiding, they're the one who needs the neck level. So weird, isn't it? But again, it's just part of this non-joined up thinking. You've got someone who only wants to do a dungeon a week for the plus 10 for the gear, but effectively just wants to raid. And they can't unlock their raid gear by raiding. That content is not enough to unlock the gear they're getting from raiding. It's just mad. It's just madness. It does my head in. It's no wonder I had a headache earlier. What about when you get no loot dropped, but a member of your group gets the piece that you want but can't trade because it's a couple of item levels higher than the current piece? Well, you know, that is one of the problems. It's not the only problem. That is one of the problems with the forced personal loot for serious raiders, mythic raiders. Yeah, it's annoying. When you did raid gear, excitement was first 2 weeks when it was all shiny and new. After a few months, after months, unicorn piece has finally dropped. Have I seen the cult around Moonkin? Yes. I'm not quite sure about the Kulturan druid forms, I have to say. They're different, I'll give them that. I'm not sure whether I like them or not, though. But they are different. The only emotions you experience from gear since WoD is either disappointment or relief, never excitement. Well, quite. You love the AP farm and you work 50 plus hours a week. 50 hours a week playing WoW. Have I ever done that even in my darkest... Oh, it might have been a few times a few years ago. A long year time. 50 hours a week. When you say 50 hours a week, please tell me you mean actual working and not in the game. If only Mythic Plus existed back in WoD. Well, yeah. Yeah, that would have helped a lot, wouldn't it? In fact, if it was introduced in WoD, then it may have gone some way to rescuing the thing. But, you know, I guess it wasn't ready for WoD. Just, you know... I just need Gary to assure me that when he says works 50 plus hours a week, he means earning his keep and not playing the game. Because we'll come to the end, but I seriously need to know that. I need to know the answer to that question. 50 hours a week since launching the game. Jesus. 10 hours work a day, Monday to Friday. Play WoW to... Oh, that's fine. That's great, Gary. Thank you. I thought you meant 50 plus hours in the game. But now Anthony's giving me nightmares because he does play 50 hours a game in the week. Doesn't change the fact the outdoor world was a complete desert. Well, one of them was supposed to be, but yes. 13 days played since dinged 120. Right, okay. Last thing before we finish off. Mythic dungeons were the end of WoD, but Mythic dungeons were just heroic dungeons with a bit more health. But by the time they came out, the gear was so much better that they weren't actually harder than heroic dungeons. Because they didn't have any new... Did they have new mechanics? They didn't really have new mechanics as far as I can remember. You know, people only did them for those trinkets, the heirloom trinkets. I'm just going to log into WoW to see what my playtime is since 120, and then we'll call it a day there. But because I'm going to guess this is pretty low. So let's... I'll link it. I'll get a screenshot of it. You would do Mythic Plus if it didn't have the clock. Well, you can do it without the clock. I'm not even going to tell you. When we did our plus 10 last week, I'm not even going to tell you how bad it was and how long it took us. Okay? All I will say is this. As we were getting towards the end of it, there was a realistic prospect. We didn't quite make it, but there was a realistic prospect of us clocking 100 deaths. We were that close away. We were that far. If we'd have wiped on the last boss, we would have actually had 100 deaths. But we didn't, because at the end of the day, Paladin. Oh, wait. Oh, I'm going to grab this and you can feast your eyes on this. Let's see now. Add source. Media file. There it is. Total time played 786 days, 23 hours, 22 minutes, 46 seconds. But time played this level a measly 3 days, 17 hours, 29 minutes, and 57 seconds. Oh dear. Ouchie. Well, I'm about... Oh, I forgot to check my item level, actually. I'm about 358, 359, something like that. Have I ever thought about doing physics YouTube videos? I have thought about doing a science channel, but again, time. If I did a science channel, it's a long-term goal of mine. I really want to. I have two main barriers at the moment. One is time. If I do it, I want to do it well, and as a proper one. Like, you know, other channels that I do are just like, you know, it's fun, but I want to do it properly. And the other thing is, I don't quite know what focus to give it. There's lots of things. I'm super interested in science, and it could go in any number of directions. You can't see your true days on your original vanilla palettes. Oh, change race and server. Okay. But, yeah. No, it would be science if I did it. But it's a long-term goal, and it may be one of those where I never feel I've got the time because I keep doing other things. 8 days. Yes. Is anyone going to trump my... I mean, let's face it. If it's less than 3 days, 17 hours and 29 minutes, you're probably not playing the game. How long has it been out? It's been out about a month now, hasn't it? It's been out more than a month. How long has it been out? 5, 6 weeks? Hold on. Let's just check. 1, 2, 3, 4... 6 weeks. It's an average about half a day a week. That's a bit more. Actually, no, probably a lot of that will have been loaded in the first couple of weeks as well. You've got 420. Yeah, I see. I have one. I did a little bit of leveling on my American Paladin during one stream, but didn't, only got so far. What's my neck level? My neck level is 20. So let's log back in because I wanted to just check. Yes, very good. I might have been playing for more than a year. Right, let's log back in again. I just want to see what it's up to. Come on. Gordon Bennett. There we go. Right, so my neck level is 20, but I am 64% in. So, another session of World Quest might see that go up. Especially after tomorrow, when the reset, of course, will shorten the amount of AP I need to get that. And I have 358.62 item level. For less than 4 days played. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Would I try Rating Classic? I did try Rating Classic. I played it in Classic. Um, 8 days, 3.5 hours, plus 9 days, 23 hours. Well, there you go. So, basically 18 days you played. You mean when they bring out Classic, will I roll another Paladin? In which case, yes, but only for... I don't expect to spend a lot of time in Classic, because I did Classic back in the day. As far as I'm concerned, I had my fill. I miss certain things that they removed from the game. Basically, if they never touched vanilla content, if they just left it and didn't piss about with it in Cataclysm, I wouldn't really care about Classic. I would understand that it's a good thing to do for the people who do, but personally, I wouldn't care about it much. But there are things that I can't go back to in the game for nostalgia purposes because they've mucked it up that I would like to. So I will play it, but I won't play a lot. If I were back to hardcore, in how much higher do I think that 4 days would have been? I dread to think. Because, remember, I had a week and a half between BFA coming out and going back to work. every waking hour would have been spent online. So there'd have been 10 days where I'd have had 16 hours a day probably online. Even if not actively playing it, I'd still be online ready to go if someone else needed a group for something. So that straight, just in the first, just before I went back to work, would have been, you know, what, close to 7 days worth. And then it would have been, since then, it would have been probably 10 hours Saturday and Sunday, and probably 6 hours a night on weeknights as well. So about 50 hours a week since then as well. What that would be? 10. I would say probably about 16, 17 days worth would have been realistic if I'd have still been a Mythic Raider. Although possibly altogether, I probably would have leveled up some characters for profession purposes as well. So it may not have all been on the Paladin. You've got to bear in mind that 786 days as well is much lower than it would have been had I not quit for a good portion of the time in Wrath and Kata. So, you know, I shudder to think how much time would have been added onto it if I'd have played both those expansions in their fullest. Maybe you should go outside some more. Are you sure? It causes cancer, you know. And there isn't even anything to be said for getting vitamin D this time of year either. All the sun does at the moment is get... At the time I set off for work and at the time I come home, it's right in my eyes. It's blinding me. There's certain junctions when I have to stay there longer than necessary because I can't quite see if there's anything coming. Because the sun's there. It might be a car, it might be a UFO for all I can see. It might be just a cat. No idea. Classes were more boring in Classic. Of course they were. There was like 1 bar of abilities. But there were some nice things that unfortunately got lost along the way that I would miss and I would wish to have a look. What do you do to maintain a good health while logging so many hours? Most people don't. I am not in grey health. Let's face facts. So, yeah. Well, this is the problem with modern living, isn't it? It's, well, you come from Scotland, I assume, as well. So it's worse for you. So it's not good for us. It's really not good for us. But, you know, there you go. What do you mean evil teachers? I'm an evil teacher. No, I'm not. I'm just a teacher. But anyway, I'm going to call it there. So thanks very much for coming on. I'll be streaming tomorrow, but it will be Lord of the Rings online. But I can chat about whatever. That's fine. So yes. So thanks for coming on. And until next time, I will see you later.